Welcome to the Free Library of Philadelphia. I am State Senator Vincent Hughes. Some of you may know that. Yes. Applaud. You're more than welcome. If you're not constituents of mine, you're more than welcome to move into my district. We've got registration forms right now, okay? We can make it happen. As many of you know, the Free Library is dedicated to advancing literacy, guiding learning, and inspiring curiosity. From its award-winning author event series to its thought-provoking programs, please visit freelibrary.org / depending upon how you're looking at it. Support. I'm a senator. What do you know? Come on. freelibrary.org/support to make a gift that will help the library continue to produce such transformative programming. And while you're online, don't forget to sign up for a library card. It's now my pleasure to introduce a clarion political voice in our country, Van Jones. No, he is not the chairman of the Jeffrey Lord fan club, but he is I love that. He's a political contributor at CNN. He's the host of The Messy Truth with Van Jones, known for his searing honesty that goes beyond political affiliation. A proponent of environmental justice, he served as the Green Jobs Advisor to President Barack Obama, and don't we miss those days? You might want to stand for that. and is the president and founder of Green for All, which advances environmental solutions that prioritize families and workers living on the front lines of some of the worst pollution in America. He has also founded and led organizations fighting for social justice, including Rebuild the Dream, the Ella Baker Center for Human Rights, and Color for Change. His deep list of accolades includes the NAACP's Image Award and the Time 100 Most Influential People in the World. That's pretty. It's a lot of people in the world. It's his new book, Beyond the Messy Truth: How We Came Apart, How We Come Together, is a passionate manifesto that exposes hypocrisy on both sides of the political divide and draws a blueprint for converting our collective angst and enmity into real change. After reading the book, U.S. Senator Cory Booker hailed, "Van Jones is a light in the darkness when we need it most." We are so pleased, and I emphasize that, we are so pleased to have him here with us this evening. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Van Jones to the Free Library.
Hello. I am so glad to be in Philadelphia and not in Washington, D.C. Oh, I'm so happy. Happy. And you are mostly sad. So hopefully we can fix a little bit of that tonight. I wrote a book. I'm so pleased with myself, having written it. Who here has actually written a book before? Okay. Now, the rest of you guys can check your email. But isn't it weird that afterwards you can't remember what's in it? Right? And then it comes and you're like, I hope it's good. I hope I agree with it still. And I can report it's good. It's good. And I want to just talk about we're all friends here. We don't have to do the whole political thing. I just want to talk about why I wrote the book, what I'm going through, what you're going through, and how I think we can get out of this mess. So that's basically what we're going to do tonight. So I'm going to talk for about half an hour, and then we're going to take questions and answers for about half an hour. And then I've got to run out of here, unfortunately. Sometimes I get to stick around and take pictures and get free stuff from people. And sometimes it's really weird stuff. But I digress. So I unfortunately got a bunch of phone calls I got to do back at the hotel. So I'm going to run out of here after our hour together. But, let's just be honest. Most of you guys never heard of me before election night, and I know that's true. Not you. Well, you know me, but talk about the person sitting next to you. And that was a tough night. Some people, she's like, I'm still in therapy. It was a tough night, and I think that for some of us, we've been grieving really ever since. Most of us in this room, if you came out on a Thursday night to hear some dude from CNN, I can already tell you, you're weird. And you've been weird since you were little. Sensitive. Don't like bullies. Didn't like them when you were small. You were the kind of kid, you cried more for the kid that was getting mistreated than the mistreated kid was crying for him or herself. You just always been that way. Heart too big, head too soft. You care about people. And most of you have spent most of your lives trying to figure out some way to make things better for people. And then a bigot, a bully, a liar wins the most cherished seat in the world, and it flipped you, and you're still flipping. It brings you back to being small and feeling powerless, and seeing people sometimes in your own family have power and abuse it, people in your own neighborhood have power and abuse it, and not being able to do anything about it. And now here you are grown, and you've worked so hard to make the country better, and you're feeling that way again. And so it's not just a political thing for people like us. It's a personal thing. It's an emotional thing. And it takes something to come back from it. People don't understand why every time he tweets, we just lose our mind. We can't get out of bed. As soon as you wake up, God damn it! I mean, it's been rough. So, what I'm hoping now, though, and this has been your role in your community, in your family, to try to help move the grief along now. Somebody loses somebody they love, tough divorce, lose a job. You got to let them grieve. You got to let them grieve. And it's ugly and it's terrible, and you got to let them grieve. But not too long. Not too long. And we're about to come up on too long now. Okay? I hate to tell you this. It's October. The election was in November. The inauguration was in January. So at some point, you got to start asking yourself, all right, what happened? And how can we make sure this never happens again? That's the most important question you can ask now. You got to start asking questions about the future. Now, some people will say that Donald Trump is insane. So we'll get to that. But there's another definition of insanity, which is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. Here's the tough part for liberals and progressives now. From the moment he went down that escalator and said he was running for president by attacking Mexicans, we've been doing the same thing over and over again. Outraged, upset, cussing, fussing, tweeting, Facebooking, and the outcome has been the same. He is still there and worse every day. So we're going to have to do something different. And that's tough because, and again, you've played this role in your own lives, in your own family. When somebody is in a tough situation, the hardest thing for them to do is look in the mirror. It's a lot easier for them to blame other people and get upset and recycle and reloop and recycle and reloop. That whole PTSD trauma thing that we've been stuck in, that's hard to break out of. So I wanted to write a book that would try to help us with this. I want to write a book that would give us some grounding, some sense of what the heck happened, and also what we could do. Now, some of you are parents. Do we have any parents in the room? Okay, a few. I myself have these small, unemployed, ungrateful people who live in my house. I don't know how they got there. I don't know why they think my name is Uber, but this has happened to me too, so we have this in common. And what I noticed about them is, they force us to drive them to these sporting events where they play these games, which they often lose. And then afterwards, it is just awful listening to them. The referee sucked. The other team cheated. Comey. Russians. Right? I mean, and you just got to let them do that for a while. But on the ride home, if you're a good parent or a good grandparent or a good auntie, a good uncle, at some point you have to say, I get it. That was wrong. It was terrible. But what could we have done? What could you have done differently that might have given us a better outcome? So we're at that place now. This is the car ride home. All right? This is that moment. And I want to suggest a couple of things. I'll leave most of it to the book. And the great thing about a book is you can go at length, and you can really try to get into it. You can be more nuanced. But I think there's a couple just truths that we just have to deal with. Here's 3. Number 1, both political parties suck. Okay? They both are just awful. And because they both suck so bad, they created conditions in the country where something was going to have to give. Both political parties, I don't mean to offend anybody, but both political parties all through the 90s into the 2000s were signing off on policies that were just awful for people. But Bill Clinton, God bless him, Newt Gingrich, God bless him, they got together. They both said, we're going to sign NAFTA and these trade deals, and it's going to be great for everybody. And for the people it's not great for, we're going to retrain you. It's going to work out fine. And it wasn't great. For some of us, it was great. But the winners in neoliberal policy, the winners in globalization, we are diffuse and ungrateful. The losers are concentrated and pissed off. And they're pissed off in the industrial heartland. They're pissed off in the so-called Rust Belt. But both parties signed off on that stuff. Both parties signed off on deregulating the banks. Both parties said, we can let Wall Street do what they want to do, and it'll all be great. Both parties they said, it's just terrible what we do to our bankers. They're shackled and oppressed, man. We got to free the bankers and let Pookie stay in jail, but free the bankers. And they crash the economy. $1 trillion disappears. 1 million people lose their homes. Both parties signed off on it. Both parties said, we're going to build prisons coast to coast. Bill Clinton came in 92, 1 million people behind bars. He left 2 million, doubled the prison population. That was a Democrat. Both parties said these dumb wars, that now we have a generation that's grown up and never seen America at peace. That we could go over there and we'd make liberty and democracy, and we don't know how to get out of them. I can go through so many times where this bipartisan elite in both parties signed off on policies that just collapsed huge parts of the middle class. And at some point, hurt people holler. Hurt people holler. That's why you have Black Lives Matter marching. How long did you think you're going to be able to stuff prisons full of black and brown young people who aren't doing any more drugs than their white counterparts and have no protest? Look, I know. I spent my 20s in a drug-infested den of iniquity called Yale University. It was bad, man. But I never saw one Yale student go to prison. No matter how much they smoked or snorted or shot up. In fact, if they got in trouble, the system reacted aggressively and sent them to rehab. And yet 5 blocks away in the housing projects, you could see from campus, poor black kids doing fewer drugs would go to prison for 7 years, 8 years, 24 years, and come home and be called drug felons. And then their peers went on to become doctors, lawyers, in the case of George W. Bush, President of the United States. Everybody knows that. How long is that going to happen before a generation starts hurt people holler? Occupy Wall Street. But not just on the left. Tea Party. Bernie Sanders. Donald Trump. You start having these rebellions. All these rebellions on the left and the right. Because something is wrong. And in 2016, we were afraid to admit that for as much as we love the Obamas, that there was some deep, deep, deep problems that we had not yet been able to solve, and deep pain and deep resentment. And we didn't speak to it in the general election in the way that we could have. So both these parties are participating or did participate in setting this whole thing up. So somebody could come along and lie to people and do terrible things. We had rebellions in both parties. We had a Sanders rebellion in the Democratic Party, Trump rebellion in the Republican Party. And there are more rebellions coming, by the way. So that's one thing. The second thing I think is true is that for us as progressives, we've done something beautiful and extraordinary, and we've also made some mistakes. The politics of accusation, which is now the dominant politics, requires that we never admit to any mistakes. Everything that's wrong is because of Trump and the Republicans and racists and sexists and the Klan and neo-Nazis and Comey. Everything. That's true. Like, you ain't lied. I'm trying to make that be the bad position. So, and there's something to that. But in trying to do something beautiful and in trying to do something good, you can sometimes have unintended consequences and not get it right the first time. So for the first time, the progressive movement proudly, with no apologies, or the kids say unapologetically, embraced those Black Lives Matter kids who got tired of seeing their peers shot down in the street like dogs by law enforcement. And we said, we love you, and we pulled them into the circle. And that was beautiful. And for the first time, unapologetically, those dreamers, and not just the dreamers, but their families too, we said we're going to stand with immigrants. We didn't just embrace marriage equality. And don't forget, in 2012, even President Obama was a little bit nervous. Remember that? If it wasn't for old Biden, remember Biden? Remember Uncle Joe? Oh, Biden. He got on in the interview, and he says, well, me and the president are for marriage equality. We like gay marriage. And Obama said, what? Damn it, Joe. I wasn't in the script. And so he had to come out a couple of days later and say, well, I personally. Remember that? It's just 2012. Because, well, I personally, not for policy purposes. Don't worry, I'm not going to impose it on the country. But I personally, seeing my daughters going to school with lesbian parents and gay parents, I personally am for it. And the world didn't fall apart. Within 4 years, we were for LGBTQ and a bunch of other stuff. Loud and proud. That's extraordinary. The Muslims, who for some reason the Republicans like to pick on, which I'm just going to point out is bizarre. I mean, just to be clear, since, if you're concerned about terrorism, most of the terrorists in the United States are white guys, not Muslims. So that's that's according to the FBI. That's not Van Jones. So if you're concerned about terrorism, you know where to go for that. But Muslim Americans? We're supposed to be mad at Muslim Americans? These are the best Americans we got. Lowest crime rate? Lowest divorce rate? One of the highest levels of educational attainment for women? Highest entrepreneurship? Every Muslim you know has got a college degree or a job or a business. You're supposed to be mad at them? If a Muslim family moved in next door to you, you would be so happy because the chances of your kids getting in trouble just went way down. Way down. Muslim Americans are amazing. Like, we should be trying to be like them. And Republicans, they say they like faith, they like family. What's not to like? So we said, no. You're in a circle. Women who, it goes without saying, our nominee was a woman. That's not a big deal to us. Not only was our nominee a woman, if she hadn't run, we had 10 other women that could have run. Elizabeth Warren, Amy Klobuchar, Kristen Gillibrand, Kamala Harris, Tulsi Gabbard. We got amazing women out the wazoo, and our policies match. They're in the circle. Native Americans out there getting beaten and mistreated at Standing Rock. You're in the circle. We put together, unapologetically, one of the most beautiful circles you've ever seen in 2016. That's the good part. Here's the bad part, the tough part. The circle was still too small. There were still some people who were hurt and who were hollering, and we didn't hear their cry. I got a chance to go to parts of so-called red America. I went to West Virginia. I went to Indiana. I went to parts of Michigan and Pennsylvania. And what I saw shocked me. This ain't Mayberry no more. That's gone. That's gone. These little small towns in these red counties. I met guys, 52 years old, 56 years old, been out of work 2 years, 4 years, 5. Ashamed to go to the VFW now. They don't want to talk to their buddies who don't have jobs, and they don't want to talk to their buddies who do. Ashamed to go to church. They don't want to make eye contact because they feel like they've somehow failed. Got kids. One kid addicted to the painkillers, opioids, and every day living in fear that the next phone call is going to be from the morgue because they've lost a kid to the painkillers. Some of these towns, on Friday, the morgue rents freezer trucks because they know by Sunday the morgue is going to be filled with young people dropping dead from opioid painkillers. And they're afraid their kid's going to be next every weekend. And then they got the good kid who's off at college somewhere, pride of the family. And they're driving around trying to get groceries ready for her to come home. And they got to drive past. Forget the factories. The factories have been gone. The stores are gone. The strip malls are empty. You got a Blockbuster Video been sitting there empty for 4 years with the chains now rusted to the gate. Grass growing up through the asphalt. And the guy remembers when this was a good town. And then here comes the baby. Home from college. Best casserole made. Sitting there warm on the table. And you can't get 10 minutes into dinner before daddy, you're a bigot. Daddy, that's racist. You're a racist. You need to own your heterosexual privilege. The hell? And it hurts. It hurts. Where do I fit in? Does anybody give a damn about me? I'm trying. Can I get a break? I said it wrong. God damn, I'm sorry. So they go down in the basement. They go in the man cave. They close the door. They cut the TV on. And there's a man standing there saying, I understand what you're going through, and I'm going to make America great again. Now, I'm going to be honest. When the factories closed down, Van Jones didn't go. NAACP didn't go. Environmental groups didn't go. National Organization of Women didn't go. Trump went. These Nazis went and preyed on those people. But we didn't go and pray with them. Beautiful circles, just a little too small. That's all. Third thing I'll say is this. We sometimes underestimate the heroism of our cause. As Americans, as progressive Americans, I don't think you understand what you signed up for. You got 10,000 years of human history, mostly a bloodbath. People chopping each other into small bits because I'm from one tribe, you're from another. And we don't have to talk about anything else. That's enough. Mostly a bloodbath. We might trade and barter a little bit, but not a lot. And here we come along. 300 million people. Every kind of human being ever born in one country. Every faith, every gender, every sexuality, every kind of person ever born in one country with no dictator potentate to tell everybody how to act. We're now going to run it democratically with the idea that everybody's supposed to have a fair shot and a fair shake, and we're going to be self-governing doing it. And we mostly get along. I've been in a country, they got two ethnic groups, they fight all the time. I say, y'all can't get along with two? You got two groups, and you can't work it out. Two groups, and you've been fighting for how long? If you go to New York City, you got 300 groups in one subway car. It's a miracle in human history what we do. But America is hard to do. And democracy is not an app that you download and poke once every 4 years. It's hard to do. And I'm going to say something that liberals have not admitted, and I think it would actually give us a little bit of psychological relief if we did. We didn't do jack in 2016 to stop this fool. Can we just be honest? We didn't do jack. Well, that's not true, my God, Van. My God, Trump offended me from the start. I tweeted about him every day. You should see my Facebook posts. I'm sorry. I'm a bit of a lay historian. I can go way back in history to make my point. I can go all the way back to 2012. Remember how hard you worked in 2012? Remember 2008? How hard did you work in 2008 to elect Barack Obama? People, they went to swing states, they phone banked, they were wearing T-shirts. I mean, people were on fire to win that race. 2012. To stop Mitt Romney. Who I would not only vote for, I give him a lap dance right now. I mean, hey, I apologize. So, can we just be honest? To stop John McCain, to stop Mitt Romney, how hard did you actually work? And then what did you do last year? So, when you walk on the soccer field, young people, and say, I know we're going to win. The other team sucks and there's no way. You're going to get beat. Doesn't mean the world's a terrible place. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. Doesn't mean America's a terrible place. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. Mainly depends on what people like us do and don't do. You've always had mean jackasses. Remember, I don't know, high school? So it comes back to us. And we can sit up here for another year or 4 or 8 years, which is what you're signing up for, if all we do is complain and cry and whine and blame and accuse, etc. This is simple, folks. Both parties screwed up. We need better Republicans and better Democrats. The Democrats need to have a bigger circle and love more people and get over this putting down everybody who's a Republican and putting down everybody who's a red state voter. Hey, listen, if we don't like them, they're not going to like us. We may like them, and they still may not like us, but maybe they'll vote for better Republicans at least, and we might be able to get someplace. And in conclusion, I'll say this. Quit acting like it's supposed to be easy. Y'all sat in that Barack Obama bubble bath for 8 years. Came out flabby and wrinkled, man. You weren't ready to fight. You just weren't ready to fight. All right? So, buy my book. Towel off and let's fight. Thank you very much. I'm going to take 5 questions in a row, and I'm not going to answer any of them until we get to 5. And then I'll answer them in batches, and we'll see how many voices we can hear from.
What about Bernie?
What?
What about Bernie?
What about Bernie?
Yes, and the non-DNC Democrats.
Who's the best person to run against Donald Trump and beat him?
What can we do about fake news?
Do you think Donald Trump's persona is more damaging or his policy?
How come this country hasn't changed much since All in the Family and the Jeffersons?
All right. So that's the first 5. Start at the top. What about Bernie? He endorsed my book. So that's good. Check. Actually, talk about the split in the party in the book, and I don't want to take up a whole bunch of time with it, but it's important to remember 2 things. One is that though Hillary won the nomination and she won the primary, it was Bernie's folks who won the policy agenda. So the official policy agenda for the Democrats is actually much closer to the Bernie wing. And I think people should remember that. The other thing that people should remember is that whatever nonsense and shenanigans were happening at the DNC level, which offended and alarmed a lot of the Bernie supporters, that wasn't really, from my point of view, the critical weakness in Bernie's campaign. The critical weakness in Bernie's campaign was that he was not able to attract African American support early enough in the process. So this is a disproportionately African American party. The backbone of this party, from an energy point of view and from a work point of view and from a voting point of view, African American women. That is the backbone of this party. 96% of African American women voted for Hillary Clinton. That is more than any other group. And Bernie, at the beginning of the campaign, had a hard time breaking through with that group. If he ran now, he might have a different relationship. But let's just not, I think it's important that the left wing of the party take seriously that this is a party that the black community matters in. We're the only part of the Democratic coalition that has to give not 50% of our vote, not 60, not 70, not 80, not 90, but 92 to 93% of our vote. And we got to stand in a long lines to do it. We got to overcome all kinds of hostility to do it, just to put Democrats within range of a victory. No other group has to do that. We don't expect that from the Latino community. Listen, white women voted in their majority for Donald Trump, in their majority. So when you have a party that your bedrock vote, your core vote, is African Americans, it's important that you take us seriously before you start your run. And I love Bernie. He just had a problem with that at the beginning. I don't think he'd have it today. Who can beat Donald Trump? Who said it? Oprah Winfrey. Yeah, Oprah could beat Donald Trump. The other person who could beat Donald Trump is Michelle Obama. She could destroy Donald Trump. But neither one of them want to run. So that's bad for the long term, but it's good for the short term. The bad part about having Barack and Michelle Obama was that it made you feel good. You guys were like in the Mickey Mouse Club for 8 years, man. And we didn't notice some things. We lost a house, didn't seem to notice. 2010. Lost the Senate 2014, didn't seem to notice. We lost 2/3 of the governorships, 2/3 of the state legislatures. We lost 1,000 positions, state and federal, over that 8-year period. And you didn't know we were in trouble until Election Day, 2016. So you gotta go back to the way we used to be. We used to know that we were barely hanging on for dear life. We used to know this is going to be a scrap and a fight every inch. If you're Jewish, if you're black, if you're a female, if you're a lesbian, if you're in a wheelchair, it's going to be a fight, man. And for about 8 years, we were like, whoo, we made it. And we took our foot off the gas when it came to organization, when it came to dedication, when it came to the door knocking, when it came to the fundraising, when it came to all the hard blocking and tackling. We're like, You know, I posted I liked something on Facebook today. Whew. So exhausted by this. So we can wait around. Look, we'll get, somebody will run and we'll do our best, but I got stuff in this book that can tell you what you can do now, start now, working on issues now, groups to join, documentaries to watch, podcasts, left and right. This book is a cure for the crazy. That's what the book is. So, and then hopefully we'll be within striking distance of beating Trump. We'll see. Policy versus persona. I think both are damaging, but I think his persona is much more damaging. I think he is just licensing nasty, mean people to just let it hang out. And I think that's much more, listen, you can pass a bill, you can unpass a bill. But once you have 4 years where people think it's okay to just be a mean, ignorant bigot, and that's cool, that's a generation or two worth of damage. And so we can undo some of the policy damage. I don't know what we're going to do with regard to the damage to our character, and that's why I'm mad at progressives, honestly. On one day in November last year, you had the House on the ballot. You had the Senate on the ballot. You had the White House on the ballot. You had the Supreme Court on the ballot. And the character of a nation on the ballot. And we mainly tweeted. There's something desperately wrong with how we approached last year. We were too something, smug, arrogant, complacent, out of touch, something. And that's what we've got to look in the mirror about. We've got to look in the mirror about that because there was too much at stake. And you fought harder to stop Mitt Romney and John McCain than to win that election last year. We can never let that happen again. Wait, so the third question was, what can we do about, and then I started laughing. Who was the third question? Oh, fake news. Oh, yeah. I started laughing. Because where we work, we have real news at CNN. Who's laughing? We about to fight? I don't know. That's tough. That's tough. When you have people, some of them aren't even people, bots, who are skillfully designed and programmed to micro-target disinformation and misinformation directly into your phone that you look at 15 times an hour, sometimes 16. That's hard to combat. I honestly don't have a good answer. What I will say is this about my friends in Silicon Valley. They love to complain about Donald Trump. I live in California. And, oh, he's a divisive, terrible person, and oh my God, it's so embarrassing. And but you know who's really dividing us? These apps. If you, who here has an Instagram account? A few of us, the kids, that's all they do. Instagram and Snappy Chatty or something. They don't. Snapchat. Snapchat. Yeah. So they Snappy Chat and they Instagram. That Facebook is out as far as they're concerned. That's just Facebook is a way for parents to spy on you. They're not trying to mess with Facebook anymore. And Twitter is also on the way out. But if you go on Instagram, if you go on Twitter, if you follow someone, I'm a liberal. I follow you. You look like you might be a liberal. Not trying to accuse you of anything. Then the app will suggest more people for me to follow. They'll suggest 5 more liberals. And then if I follow them, they'll suggest 500 more liberals. When I get finished, they will have suggested an infinite number of liberals. And then my feed is amazing. It's wonderful. Because everything in my feed tells me that what I think is right. At no point does the algorithm ever say, excuse me, ma'am. You done follow 457 liberals. Might you want to follow a conservative? It's not even offered. So the same people who are complaining about Trump dividing the country have algorithms that are dividing us much more efficiently. So now we're all in our own filter bubbles. And it's not like, you have a choice. They just, you're just following these suggestions. I deliberately, and it's a true story, searched for white nationalists and followed a whole bunch of them. And then I searched for conservative, right-wing, pro-Trump. And now my social media feed is terrible. But it is so helpful. Because now, for the first time in my life, I can see in real time the way that a broad swath of people are responding to the same incident. And Instagram is great for it because at least they have to be creative on Instagram. Twitter, they could just say, bah! And you just, it's like block. I just can't. But Instagram, they got to be creative. They got to create a meme and all that kind of stuff. And you really learn a lot. Because sometimes they get you. Sometimes that's actually pretty clever. And you start understanding a little bit about how they think. But you have to break the algorithm. So I don't know how to beat fake news, but I can tell you that you aren't doing yourself any favors if you only listen to NPR, watch CNN, and read the New York Times, and then wonder why the rest of the world is crazy. I don't mean to be rude, but you may have met somebody who's doing that. And I suggested that we have to ourselves be willing to expose ourselves. And people say, I can't possibly read that stuff, My God, Van, And I just want to point out, they used to sick dogs on us. I just want to be clear about how soft and weak we've gotten. They used to sick dogs on us, fire hoses. We've lost somebody this year. They got run over by a white terrorist. Killing leftists was a common thing in this country for a long time. And trying to get information about what our enemies was doing, what our enemies were doing, would get you killed. Try to go to a Klan rally. Hey, I'm just curious what you're thinking. Good way not to make it home. They now have a device in your hand who you could just, now I know. That's what they're thinking. That's what they're doing. The idea that we're so delicate that we won't even eavesdrop for free on our enemies because we just can't handle it. It makes me doubt our claims that we believe that there's an authoritarian right-wing terrorist movement in this country that is jeopardizing democracy, that is trying to roll back all of our gains, and that needs to be confronted. We can't just hide in our own little corner and hope it goes away. We're going to have to actually be exposed to some of this stuff so we can be better at correcting our own mistakes, but also taking advantage of theirs. Last question, why is it still like All in the Family and Good Time? No. What? So he says, why has the country not changed since All in the Family and the Jeffersons? I think the country has changed. I do. I think that we are giving this orange idiot too much credit. I really do. Look, we won. I mean, look, we lost a bunch of elections. We won 2 big ones recently. That matters. What Trump desperately is trying to do every day is to convince you that it didn't matter. That the entire Obama era was just some mistake, some aberration from the unending rule of white guys. And we're falling for it. We're beginning to agree with him that just because he's figured out some way to break a bunch of rules and get away with it, that the whole country is terrible and nothing's changed. I'm just unconvinced. You got a lot of hurt people who are insecure. Some of them are black, brown, lesbian, whatever, people that we're more comfortable with, and some of them are white guys. We're asking a lot of the white guys. We're shoving a lot of change down the throats of the white guys. That's true. We want them to accept a different understanding of marriage, sexuality, gender roles. We want them to accept a different racial makeup for the country, geopolitical changes, the rise of China, technology. Change is hard. Change is hard. I've been trying to lose the same 10 pounds for 2 years. And I just had a donut. Change is hard. And some people are gagging on that change. And not just in the United States, across the West, you're seeing this backlash, or sometimes they call this white lash. Because we're winning. Because we're winning. And some people have a hard time with that. And we act like we can't understand, oh my God, those terrible bigots resisting all this change. My God, what's wrong with them? It's very fascinating to me how we break empathy. Us good liberal, love everything and everybody, every little critter in the world. Oh, I love polar bears. They would eat your... Love everything. Oh, let me just send a check to help the polar bears. Don't let them catch you. But then have zero empathy for people choking on change that we're insisting on. Doesn't make any sense. And don't act like you don't know what they're talking about. First of all, let's be honest. A lot of the liberals who say, oh my God, Donald Trump is a terrible racist, and how could he be so racist? 5 black families just moved in. Honey, we're moving. A lot of these liberals who called Donald Trump a racist, let 3 black families move into their neighborhood, they're gone. Let's be honest. It's easy to be a liberal from a certain zip code. And let's be even more honest. We're all friends here. Change is hard. Demographic change is hard for me. I spent time in Oakland, California. That's where I cut my teeth as a young, radical, rabble-rousing, street-level organizer activist. Yeah. Berserkly. Oakland. West Oakland. And guess what's happened, though? Because Silicon Valley is about 30 minutes south, all those computer programmers and computer engineers are starting to move into West Oakland. Now I go to West Oakland, and there's, kale everywhere. What the hell? And I want to be guys aren't gonna like this, but I start getting uncomfortable. I said, who asked all these people to come here? I like Oakland the way that it was. And if I could build a wall and make Silicon Valley pay for it, I would say build a wall, you know? Let's just be honest. Now, am I saying that we should therefore become xenophobic bigots? No. Listen, we got 11 million people here, and if they left, the country would fall off a cliff. Some of the hardest working, best people, most talented people, strongest families in the country, undocumented immigrants. We should fight for them every day. Fight for them every day. But let's not break community with folks who see it different and may be less comfortable with it. Some of them are just horrible bigots, but some of them, you know, they just don't know where they fit. And I'll close with this, and I want to take some more questions, but I'll close with this. A guy named Nelson Mandela, endlessly inspiring to me, because he faced a similar situation to the one that we're facing, in that he lived in a country where the racists had too much power and were abusing it. And unlike us, he personally was victimized. He spent 27 years in prison. I've been to that prison on Robben Island, and that cell is not much bigger than this space right here. 27 years. His son died. He wasn't allowed to go to the funeral. As a COSA, that's a huge insult, a huge problem. His son's spirit could never rest. His mother died. They wouldn't let him go to the funeral. His friends were murdered, tortured. His wife was banned and put in a dangerous, far, far part of South Africa. He could see her once every other year. He'd get letters from her. It was just confetti. They cut out all the information. Not for a day, not for a week. 27 years. When Nelson Mandela came out of prison, he could rightfully have told every white South Africaner to go to hell. That now it was their turn. And that was the expectation of those Afrikaners. And they bought a bunch of guns, and they did a bunch of violence when he got out. And a bunch of black Africans said, you know what, we're just going to have a war then, because we're sick of it. And Mandela watched the same dynamic you're seeing of this polarization and the retreat into tribalisms and intolerances and the ramping up and the ramping up. And when Mandela then led his forces in to sit down and talk with the white South African government, every person he walked in the room with had been called a terrorist, had been tortured, had been beaten, had been jailed. And now they're sitting there. Is that my phone or your phone? That's your phone? Messing up my story. I ain't mad though. Every single person in the South African High Command, the ANC, all of them, not just Mandela, all of them had their lives ruined by violent, racist, authoritarian fascists who had been in power and government for too long. And Mandela sat down across directly from de Klerk and all their torturers and all their executioners and all their murderers. And he finally had a chance to speak to them face to face, eyeball to eyeball. And they braced themselves for what was coming. And Nelson Mandela, in Afrikaans, told them their story. He told them how great they were. He listed every one of their great generals who had fought the battles in the Boer War so that they could be independent. He recited their poetry. He listed their scientific and economic accomplishments. And he said, with a people as great as you, I know that a just peace is possible. Everybody in that room, down to the lowliest intern, knew it was over. It was over. Because this man somehow was able to see a better future for them than they had ever even imagined for themselves. He had somehow been able to see through all of the suffering, to see the beauty that could still be present in this country. And he said, I can't have the South Africa that I want without you. I need you. I'm Xhosa, I'm not Zulu, but I can see a South Africa where the Zulus are thriving. I'm Xhosa, I'm not Fula, but I can see a South Africa where the Fula are thriving. I'm Xhosa, I'm not Afrikaner, but I can see a South Africa where your greatness is even greater. And I can't get there without you. I need you. Nelson Mandela could do that. Those people in Charleston, when that bigot went in there and shot down 9 innocent churchgoers, if they could come out and say, we don't want the murderer who killed all of our relatives, we don't want him to have the death penalty. They're fighting right now to stop him from being put to death because they say, no. Hatred can never conquer hatred. If they can do that, I think that maybe, just maybe, you might be able to forgive your Trump voting cousin. Thank you very much. I love you. Good night.